Good morning. Again. What a beautiful day. Have you guys noticed God this morning yet? Yeah, I was just wondering about that because we have this beautiful approaching autumn sunlight that kind of clarifies our thinking. We have the rains that cleanse and clarify our thinking. We have the winds that blow and clean everything out, and the ocean that just delights our heart in ways that remind us that God is in and through everything. My topic this morning is immersed in the divine. And I believe that, and I teach that, and I know that one of the basic principles of the science of mind is that God is everywhere present. God is in and through it all. And if this is so, and I do of course believe it is, this means that there's this all-pervading presence of spirit in everything we see, and also in what we cannot see with our physical eyes. We are immersed. We may never understand all that God is, but just the same, it is our lives. It is the very life we live. Ernest Holmes wrote, "We are one with the body in the physical world, one with the creative law of the universe in the mental world, one with the Spirit of God in the conscious world." And all the mystics have sensed this, haven't they? They have said, "In him we live and move and have our being," that we are all one with the whole and one with each other. And what a wonderful idea. And a difficult one. If 100% of everything is divine, then what about my less than perfect body? What about our less than perfect politics? What about our less than perfect lives? What is that about? Well, the creative power of God is expressing through us. We don't just passively perceive the world, we actively generate it. The world we experience comes as much from the inside out as it does from the outside in. I see a couple of nods. We generate it through the power of mind, through our ideas and our words. This is the universal creative vehicle. The creative process of mind is continuously going on. God is right now expressing in and through me, in and through the world we see. It didn't just happen millennia ago. It's happening all the time. I read that Dr. Robert Anthony wrote, "Most people would rather be certain they're miserable than risk being happy." Oh my God. Most people? I don't know. I guess I live in a world of like-minded people who don't want to be miserable, that know that suffering is optional, that know that we generate our world that we experience through us. I don't choose miserable. How about you guys? No. Oh my goodness. But complaining about the behavior and choices of others is something that we sink into every now and then, isn't it? Isn't it? Yes. Once. I did that once, but I didn't inhale. Yeah. Ever etched in my mind. So we criticize and we condemn what other people are doing rather than building the bridges that make for healthy relationships. And that's what we all are. That's what my message is today. That we are all in relationship with each other as part of the divine. If we are all immersed in the divine, if it is in and through everything, then everyone in this room is immersed in it and part of it also. And everyone out there, as far as we can experience, is also immersed in the divine. I get a blog called The Daily Good. And I recently read a story of a woman who interviewed her 94-year-old father, asking him, with what's going on right now, what do you think about it with all of the life-changing events you've seen in the last 94 years? This man had parents who lived through the Spanish flu, They lived through the Great Depression. He served in World War II, and all the events that happened since then that are part of my life and probably many of yours. How does this compare? And what he said was, and it kind of makes me sad, he said, in those events we all pulled together. We all knew that we were in this together, and that we all had to work together to get to the other side of it. And what we're seeing now is a lot of division and separation. We're seeing a lot of blame, shame, guilt, complaining, suspicion, and all these things that do not make for a healthy relationship with the people around us and with our neighbors in the world. It's not what we teach. It's not who we are. It's not Malama. It's not caring for each other. I learned from Sabra Kalka. I listened to a talk with her one day at one of the sacred sites on island, and she was talking about how island living is kind of like Kyle's song about being in the canoe.
And I'm so sorry, I should have played that song.
Maybe you can sneak it in there somewhere, I don't know. But we're all in this together. And if I'm pouring water in the boat while you're trying to bail it out, which is what that song is about, us all working together to bail and paddle and get to where we're going together, then we all have to be united in a cause. We all have to be working towards the good of the whole. We all have to remember that all of us and everything we experience is immersed in the divine, is an expression of the divine. I don't know where I am in my talk. It just went, phew. Unhealthy relationships, you know, they have a lot of things in common. They have distrust and dishonesty. They have suspicion and doubt and control and hostility and physical violence. And we have seen a lot of that in recent years. Where are we going with that? It's an unhealthy relationship that we have allowed to develop, and we get to choose. I just finished the workshop on whole brain living by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Some of you were there. And she talked about how we get to choose who and how we want to be in the world. Each of us gets to choose who and how we get to be in the world. That means that every news article we read, every social media post we pay attention to and like, every time we talk to the people around us, and even what we do in our own homes, reflects our choices. It reflects what we're generating from within us. Just to go in it very briefly, generally, you know, we've all been raised with knowing about the left brain and the right brain, and you know, left brain being, well, you guys know all about that. The analytical, the organized, the judgment, that's what the left brain knows all about, is categorizing things. This is good, this is bad, this is me, this is not me. The right brain is all about who and what we are, connected to all that is. Dr. Jill's experience of having a stroke back in the 90s took her left brain offline. She had no concept of herself as an individual. Can you imagine? She said it was like I was part of the molecules and the ether. I just didn't know where my body ended and the rest of the world began. I was one with the universe, one with all that is. She was in her right brain. And sometimes we get a taste of that when we go to meditation, when we go to connect with God, when we pray. I know that when I do spiritual mind treatment, I move from the left brain, analytical, I know how to do this, 5 steps of treatment. Yes, I'm going to do all 5 of them, and I'm going to hit, all the areas of our lives, and I'm going to do that because my left brain knows how to do a spiritual mind treatment. But at some point, you have to move into all that is. You have to move into the right brain. You have to move into the part of us that knows that there's nothing separating me from all that is, or the prayer's not going to be effective. And so that's where I go with spiritual mind treatment, is moving from my left brain solid, I know what I'm doing, I'm a minister, I'm trained. This is who I am. Don't you know who I am? That's very left brain. Into right here, right now, all of us are connected with, immersed in, expressing the oneness, the presence, the power of God. And I create my world from that place. Our practice then is to shift as often as possible. To shift as often as possible from left to right, to move ourselves from that analytical, distrustful, judgmental place. You know, it's not that that's bad, because that's what helps us get along in the world. As Dr. Jill says, she says, I know that this is my face and this is not my face. I know that because of my wonderful left brain that categorizes everything and knows how things are ordered and patterned and in and through. You know, I know that the ocean is out there and the land is here because of my left brain. I know that I'm female and other people are male because of my left brain. But when I shift into the right brain, I shift into remembering that you and I are one. We really are. And that there's this place in our right brain, it's our higher thinking brain, I don't know all the words. It's our human addition to that wonderful right brain that is the place where we connect with God. It's our right brain thinking that connects with God. And so Ernest Holmes was right when he said God is right where you are. Patrick Farron is right when he says, I am God right where I am. Because it is this connection in our higher thinking, in our right brain, that allows us to know that we are one with the universe. And to make choices from that, to move from that, to be that everywhere we go. I wish I could just wave a wand and the separation would be over. The judgment would be over. The suspicion would be over. The I'm this and you're that would be over. Because we really are all the same. Inside this skin of mine, we're all the same. And it's only my culture and my training that keeps my left brain thinking it's right. Our left brain isn't always right, but our right brain is. And so if we can slip into that, if as often as possible, not just once a day, like maybe multiple times, go into remembering that the good of the whole is the good for me, remembering that the universe is all that it is and it is me. Over and over again, we remember, we pause, and we think, God is right where I am. You know, sometimes I know we feel anxious and afraid. That's a really normal human response to the events that are going on in the world, to the events that are going on down the street, to the events that are sometimes going on in our own homes. We can feel anxious and afraid, and we can also remember that right where we are, God is. Right where we are, all that is. You know, there are some times when we might experience loss or lack or pain or disease. And we can pause to remember that right where we are, God is. We talk about truth. We can read about truth. You can listen about truth. You can hear about truth. You can never once feel the presence and the power of God. We choose to move into that. We choose to experience that through our spiritual practices. Spiritual mind treatment, physical meditation like yoga or walking meditations, Tai Chi. Spiritual mind treatment. Did I say that? Spiritual mind treatment. That's our healing tool here, so I can say that a gazillion times. And at some point, we'll all go to that first when something happens. We will remember that in and through everything, every situation, God is. Let's take a moment right now. Are any of you familiar with Joel Goldsmith? My poor little yellowed copy has been with me for a really long time. I'm trying to, one of my practitioner friends in Northern California gave this to me when I was talking about how Dr. Michael Beckwith said that this was the book that was on his nightstand. This was the book that he woke up with and fell asleep with. And I thought, well, I want some of that. I can't quite get as excited as he does when he's praying and talking, but I'll just be me because I am God expressing as well as that beautiful soul. Joel Goldsmith writes, God is the intelligence of the universe, the love of the universe, the omnipresent spirit that created, maintains, and sustains the universe. God is the source of the beauty of the trees, the flowers, and the fruits. God is the very substance of the vegetables and the minerals. God is the substance of the gold in the ground, of the silver, the diamonds, the pearls, and the sea. God it is that fills the sea with fish. God it is that fills the air with birds. God it is in the midst of me. Where I am, God is, and God's love is forever enfolding me. God is the source of my being, the source of my supply, the source of the very food on my table. God it is that gives me my life's work to do, and God it is that gives me the strength to perform it. Because it is God moving in and through us, what else could it be, yeah? Expressing the one life in our imperfect and very human way. We always have a choice about who and how we want to be in the world. Who and how we want to be with the people who believe differently. Who and how we want to be when there are fires on the land and hurricanes coming to either side of the United States on the same day at the same time. What's that about? Who and how we want to respond to world events, and who and how we want to take care of each other during this difficult time in history. We can ask ourselves what would be for the good of the whole. My reading, not surprisingly today in the Science of Mind text, was a meditation that Ernest Holmes wrote, and the affirmation at the end was, I do good to all people. I do good to all people. How can I show up in the world as good to all people? Malama oe I ke kai. Malama no ke kai ia oe. If you care for the ocean cares for you. If we care for the land cares for us. If we care for each other cares for us. It's something that Sabra taught me about living on an island, about paddling in a canoe, about being in community, is that we take care of each other and we work together. And we remember that we're immersed in the divine, everyone. It's like one body with all these different cells, and they all look a little different and provide their different functions, but they're all for the good of the body. It's not just us against the world. The isolation and the separation and the division that has taken hold in our country, it's time for it to end. We are human. We are brothers and sisters. We are immersed in the divine. And the good of the whole is what is going to bring us through this challenging time, with each of us, as many of us who can, remember that I am you and you are me. And we're all working together towards this one thing called life. I wouldn't want anyone to suffer. I wouldn't want anyone to be unhappy, because I wouldn't want that for myself. That is the place where we are in our history. We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to be unhappy. There is no them, you guys. Move into the right brain. Remember that we're all one. When you're out there on the street, when you're driving by the vaccination clinic and you have an opinion, when you're driving by a protest on the corner and you have an opinion, when your coworker is crabby and you have an opinion, when somebody's tailgating you and you have an opinion, whew, come back to 3. That's character 3 in the class, for those of you who weren't there. Character 3 is the one that knows that all people everywhere are one. I didn't mean to get political at all, because Rita and Patrick wouldn't want me to, but it happened. Sorry, boss. Okay, God is the source of our good. Let's come back there. Day after day, this awareness of God, we understand more fully that we can decide how to live. We can decide how to be. Even the turning of the seasons is God as an expression. Even the unexpected income is God in expression. Even what we see in the world and dislike or don't agree with is God in expression. It's hard to remember that, isn't it? We're human. We're living an imperfect life. There is a perfection. Reverend Ellen Davenport from Unity wrote that as spiritual beings having a human experience, we are not perfect, but we are never disconnected from perfection. We are always connected to it. And we can remember that. We can bring it back into our consciousness at any time, at any moment, and try to be as good a person as we can be. We're immersed in the divine. This way of thinking, it changes our entire experience. First, it's in our minds, then it sinks down into our hearts, then it comes into our awareness, and finally it shows up in our lives. But we have to take the first step. Most people want to be miserable instead of happy. Can you imagine? No. Let it sink in. Let it sink into your awareness. Let it sink into your life. Let it sink into your heart. And then go out into the world and do what you do every day. Be the example, yes. Thank you. So, thank you, and let's take the message into prayer. There's only one power, one presence, one love, and we've been talking about it, haven't we? It is moving in and through us. It is moving in and through me. It is moving in and through this world we see. It is the beauty of all that is, showing up in all of its amazing ways. I give thanks for the joy of God, the peace of God, the love of God. I give thanks for the health of God, the wholeness of God, the perfection of God. I give thanks for the clarity of God and the awareness of God moving in and through me. It's all whole, perfect, and complete. Knowing this is true about the whole, I know that I am immersed in the divine, and I am it. I am in it. It is all around me like the very air I breathe. Take a breath of the divine and know that all of us are immersed in the divine. All of us live and move and have our very being as some expression of that one amazing power, that power and presence of God. It's right where we are. And so I know right now that the love of God is moving in and through every relationship, that past, present, and future, those relationships are healed now. I give thanks that I know that right where I am, the presence of God is flowing in and through my body. It's releasing anything unlike the divine perfection from my body temple and yours. There is no confusion, no blockage, no nothing, no obstacle to the power of God. And so it is cleared away, it is moved away gently and gracefully with the ease of spirit. Anything that stands in the way of perfect health, mental or emotional or physical, is now removed. I give thanks that right here and right now, the divine flow of abundance is increased to a point where it is so pressed down and overflowing that we can't help but share it with those around us. I give thanks that as we give and receive, we give and receive, we give and receive even more as we are centered in this divine flow of good. And so in this moment, I allow the presence of God to move through me as I release this word into law with gratitude, knowing that it is already done. There's not a thing I have to do but simply step out of the way and allow Spirit to do what Spirit does. And so it is activated now. The prayer is activated, and it is taking place in our life and demonstrating in a way that is indeed perfect. Immersed in the divine, guys. So build those bridges that take us from the left to the right. Build those bridges that take us from separation into unity. Build those bridges that help us remember that the presence of God is right where we are. And so it is. Peace and blessings to you.